On this episode of Just Informed Talk, in case you missed it, we're going to take a look at some of the highlights from this last week that tell us everything we need to know about the insurance plan that was meant to keep President Trump out of the office of the presidency, and much, much more. You guys are going to stick around and check it out. But first, let's play a game of Guess What Nancy Pelosi is Saying.
This week we'll build next week. This is this week. One of them would further stop junk plans that can discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions, which I mentioned. Now this is a further strengthening of that legislation. The Trump administration sabotaged once again of enrollment outreach and help states set up their own marketplaces. As we prepare to celebrate Mother's Day, we're continuing to fight and the tragedy of maternal deaths who die from pregnancy-related complications, I guess is the word I'm looking for. In January, the House passed a strong emergency. Democratic House passed a strong emergency disaster relief bill specifically for Midwest flood relief. And many people do. They are patriotically, not passionately or not politically or in any way going forward, following the facts. Even the Republicans had to go to the president and say, it's over. So I support the path that our chairmen are on. They are here because they're anti-governance of any governance role in addressing climate change, addressing the epidemic of gun violence in our country, to name just two. And we will go forward with that.
And thanks for playing Guess What Nancy Pelosi is Saying. Leave your thoughts in the comments about what you think she might have said, even though I'm sure nobody could ever decipher that kind of nonsense. Seriously though, this woman is third in line to the presidency. Let's get back to the show.
And, it's not Republicans who set the expectations as to the outcome of these investigations, right? I mean, you had Democrats literally calling the President of the United States a Russian agent.
Yeah.
When my colleagues and I stood forward and said that this was a coup being attempted by senior people in our government, elected by nobody to destabilize the presidency. I mean, I had the mainstream media acting like I was wearing a tinfoil hat. But the reality is that was true. Andrew McCabe came out and said, yeah, we were out there counting noses to see if we could access the 25th Amendment to undo the results of a democratic election in the United States. That's the type of dynamic that I hope we can get beyond in our politics going forward.
One of the most bewildering things to watch over the past couple of years has been the steady migration of the American left from concern about civil liberties to an embrace of authoritarianism. It wasn't that long ago that liberals worried about powerful government agencies that might be stepping on somebody's rights. They had hearings on the subject. They don't anymore. They don't worry about it anymore. They applaud it instead. The left now controls government agencies. They understand that a permanent bureaucracy is a powerful tool of social control, and they know what's on their side. And that's why CNN is suddenly so invested in promoting creepy former bureaucrats like Clapper and Comey and Brennan. Why are they on the tube all the time? That's why. It's also why the news media became absolutely hysterical when Trump pointed out that the previous administration had spied on his presidential campaign, which they absolutely did. The press could not admit that. They had to be absolutely certain that you would never believe it.
President Trump has a new favorite word, and every time he uses it, he is lying. And that is the word spy.
His baseless claims of spies.
This is the President of the United States telling people, don't believe what this federal government is doing. And that has very, very dangerous consequences.
The notion that somehow the FBI planted someone inside the campaign to spy on the campaign is just not true.
There's absolutely no evidence there was a spy.
He wants you to believe that his campaign was spied on, and it's one of the worst things that we've ever seen from government.
Yeah, it's the governor's brother. They were all lying. The people who should have been telling you the truth were hiding the truth. They were acting as willing tools to the surveillance state. They should be ashamed of themselves. They're, of course, not. Just last night, CNN held a town hall starring former FBI Director Jim Comey. It was a pure whitewash. Comey should have paid the network for shilling for him. Spying, Comey said? What an ugly word. Only the Russians spy on people. The FBI doesn't spy, it investigates.
The New York Times reported that the FBI sent an investigator posing as an assistant to meet with a Trump aide, George Papadopoulos, in 2016. Does that qualify as spying?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on a particular investigative step because that's for the Bureau to do, and I'm not in the government any longer. But the FBI doesn't spy to begin with. The FBI investigates.
The FBI investigates. Okay, Jim. And yet moments later, after telling us I'm not going to comment on current operations, Comey changes his mind. He said it was improper to comment specifically, but then he did. Why? Because he had to explain that investigating presidential campaigns is the most common thing in the world. Totally normal, in his words.
But sending an investigator undercover to meet with somebody who is connected to the campaign, they claimed he was later on just a coffee boy. That is an extreme step, no?
No, it's a reasonable. That was the guy, Papadopoulos, who was the subject of the information we got from the Australians, that he had talked to the Russians.
Did you sign off on the investigator going?
I don't remember talking about that particular step with my team. I knew they were trying to see if they could check it out. That's a totally normal step. See if you can get somebody close to the person and see if they'll confirm what we heard from the Australians.
Yeah, I don't know if I had anything to do with it, but it would be a totally normal step. Really, it would be bizarre if you didn't send secret agents to lie to staffers on a rival presidential campaign to say they would spill information while keeping the whole thing from their boss. It's totally normal. Does Comey think anyone believes that? Does he believe that? Of course he doesn't believe it. The Soviet Union didn't expect people to believe its propaganda, just to submit to it. Comey's from that school. Everyone knows it's terrifying that the Obama people sent spies on their political opponents. Jim Comey says it's normal, and CNN backs him up. So be quiet. If you don't agree with that, you're the enemy.
They start to make little compromises to stay on the team, echo his words, use the term spying, talk about collusion, or just be silent, thinking that's what I need to do to survive. And in the process, he has eaten their soul. They're lost.
So ignore the obvious. Agree with me, or you have no soul. Who talks like that? The sort of person who will say or do absolutely anything for power. A scary person talks like that. Not long ago, Jim Comey was one of the most powerful men in the world. He could investigate you or anyone else at will. He could ruin lives if he wanted, and sometimes he did. How did a person like that ascend to a position of such authority in our government? What kind of system would promote a man like that? What kind of media would cover for him? Those are the questions we ought to be asking tonight. If there was one Jim Comey in the federal government, that means there are probably many others, and that should concern us.
Do you allow Robert Mueller to testify in Congress?
Well, I'm going to leave that up to our very great Attorney General, and he'll make a decision on that. But I will say this. Look, the Mueller report came out. It was done I guess I'm hearing numbers now close to $40 million, with 17 or 18 very angry Democrats who hated Donald Trump, and also everything that they could possibly have at their disposal. There was nobody that was in the history of our country more transparent than me. I said, give them every document, give them every person, let the White House counsel testify. I think he testified for 30 hours. I guess they must have asked him the same question because there wasn't very much to testify about. But I said, let him testify and let him keep him as long as you want. Actually, when I heard 30 hours, I said, that's a long time. But I let him testify. I didn't have to have presidential privilege. I could have stopped everything. I didn't have to give them a document. I gave them 1.5 million documents. I gave them White House counsel. I gave them other lawyers. Anybody you want, you can talk to. At the end of the testimony, no collusion, and essentially no obstruction. Of course, a lot of people say, how can you obstruct when there was no crime, when there was no collusion? How can you possibly obstruct? I'll tell you, but it's worse than that. It's not only was there no crime, but the crime was committed on the other side. So we're protecting against the crime committed on the other side. So after spending all of that money, all of that time, 2 years, they come up with a report. And Bob Mueller's no friend of mine. I had conflicts with him. We had a business dispute. We had somebody that is in love with James Comey. We like James Comey. They were very good friends, supposedly best friends. Maybe not, but supposedly best friends. You look at the picture file and you see hundreds of pictures of him and Comey. And with all of that and other things, he wanted the FBI job. I don't know if anybody knows that, but as you know, he was considered for the FBI job, wanted it. And the day after he didn't get it, he became the special counsel. That's a conflict. And we had other things, but those are tremendous conflicts. Listen to this. Your judge, call him a judge, has a business dispute with me. Your judge has a fantastic relationship with James Comey. Well, he's a part of this. He lied to Congress. He leaked. He's a liar, a leaker. And your judge has a situation where he wanted to become the FBI director. We chose Director Wray instead and told him, I'm sorry. Those are tremendous conflicts. Those are tremendous conflicts. And then he puts on his staff almost all Democrats, many of whom contributed to Hillary Clinton. None of them contributed to me, that I can tell you. And it started out at 13 and went to 18. And these were angry Democrats. These were people that went to her, in one case, went to her, it was supposed to be a party. It turned out to be a funeral on election evening, and was going wild. He was so angry. And this man now is judging me. You had other people made big contributions to Hillary Clinton's campaign. They were angry Democrats in, I think, almost all cases. One of the people worked on the Clinton Foundation as just about the top person at the Clinton Foundation. With all of this, they came back, no collusion. There's nobody in this room, including you, if they were, that's you, John. If we looked at you with $40 million, 18 angry people that hated you, and all of the other things I mentioned, they'll find something. I don't know, maybe John not. Go ahead, finish it.
Mr. Mueller is also friends with Mr. Barr, and as you're aware, Mr. Barr told lawmakers that he didn't have a problem with Mr. Mueller testifying.
I'm going to leave that up to the Attorney General as to whether or not. I think, to me, it looks like a redo. Here's what's happened. The report comes back. It's perfect. It's beautiful. There's no collusion. Nobody even talks about collusion. You know, I haven't heard the word Russia in a long time. There's no more talk about Russia. What happened to Russia? The Russian witch hunt? They don't talk because it was so on collusion, which, by the way, is by far, that's the big deal, because it was all about Russia. So I haven't heard the word Russia. They don't use the word Russia anymore. So there's no crime. There never was a crime. It was a hoax. It was a witch hunt. So this comes back, and it comes back totally exonerating Donald Trump and a lot of other people. This was a terrible thing that happened to our country. Now, I'll tell you what they are asking. They are asking about how did this whole thing start. That's what people want to know. And I want to tell you, I had an event last night. A lot of you were there. Thousands and thousands of people standing in a field. They've never seen anything like it, meaning even the press. But it's always that way. We've never had an empty seat. Thousands of people last night. You know what they want to know? How did this whole thing start? It's going to be hard for them to answer that one. Yeah, please.
As you saw, the Senate Intelligence Committee has subpoenaed Don Jr. That's the Republican-led Senate Intelligence Committee. What do you make of that?
Well, I was very surprised. I saw Richard Burr saying there was no collusion 2 or 3 weeks ago. He went outside and somebody asked him, no, there's no collusion. We found no collusion. But I was very surprised to see my son. My son's a very good person, works very hard. The last thing he needs is Washington, D.C. I think he'd rather not ever be involved. Remember, he said to me a long time ago when I was thinking about running, Dad, if I can help, let me know. It's not my expertise. It's not something I really like, but whatever I can do, you're my father, whatever I can do. He's now testified for 20 hours or something, a massive amount of time. The Mueller report came out. That's the Bible. The Mueller report came out, and they said he did nothing wrong. The only thing is, it's Oppo research. If he did wrong, then everybody standing with me probably, except for John and Lamar. I think Lamar is pretty. I'll tell you, did you ever do Oppo research on an opponent? I don't think so, Lamar. Right? And I know John Barrasso never did opposition research. They didn't, but what they didn't discuss is this woman that came in, who I watched her on the Today Show when it all started. Oh, I'm just an innocent. Well, nobody even knows, although the halls of Congress know her very well, because for years she's walked around all over Congress. She came in, and she left, supposedly, GPS Fusion, goes and meets for a short period of time with my son and some other people. They talked about a subject as very well, you know, advertised and put out, which is nothing. It was a nothing meeting. In fact, Jared left. He said, get me out of this meeting. This is a waste of time. She then went back to GPS Fusion. They were the ones that wrote the phony dossier. Why was she going to GPS Fusion? Why did she go back? Then I heard that Don, for a year, made 3 phone calls with an unmarked number. They called it unmarked. And this was a tremendous event because they all knew the fake news. They all know, you were fair on that, John. But they all knew that these phone calls, these tremendous phone calls, before the meeting and after the meeting, there were, I believe, 3, right? They all knew that it had to be to his father. Unmarked, it's perfect. So he reported about the meeting and then reported what happened at the meeting. Except after looking and spending a tremendous amount of time and money, they were able to go back years and find out who made the calls. One was a local real estate developer. The other was a great person from NASCAR. He took 2 of them, and a friend of Don's. This went on for a year and a half. John, you heard all about the phone calls to, obviously, the father, where I never knew about the meeting. But the phone calls to the father turned out not to be the phone calls. My son is a good person. My son testified for hours and hours. My son was totally exonerated by Mueller, who frankly does not like Donald Trump, this Donald Trump. And frankly, for my son, after being exonerated, to now get a subpoena to go again and speak again after close to 20 hours of telling everybody that would listen about a nothing meeting, yeah, I'm pretty surprised. Please, always. I don't want to say no, but hopefully that won't happen. We have one of the most powerful ships in the world that's loaded up, and we don't want to have to do anything. What I'd like to see with Iran, I'd like to see them call me. You know, John Kerry speaks to them a lot. John Kerry tells them not to call. That's a violation of the Logan Act. And frankly, he should be prosecuted on that, but my people don't want to do anything that's, only the Democrats do that kind of stuff, you know? If it were the opposite way, they'd prosecute him under the Logan Act. But John Kerry violated the Logan Act. He's talking to Iran and has many meetings and many phone calls, and he's telling them what to do. That is a total violation of the Logan Act. Because what they should be doing is, their economy is a mess ever since I took away the Iran deal. They have inflation that's the highest number I've ever heard. They're having riots every weekend and during the week even. And what they should be doing is calling me up, sitting down, we can make a deal, a fair deal. We just don't want them to have nuclear weapons, not too much to ask. And we would help put them back into great shape. They're in bad shape right now. I look forward to the day where we can actually help Iran. We're not looking to hurt Iran. I want them to be strong and great and have a great economy. But they're listening to John Kerry, who's violated a very important element of what he's supposed to be doing. He violated the Logan Act. Plain and simple. Shouldn't be doing that. But they should call, and if they do, we're open to talk to them. We have no secrets, and they can be very, very strong financially. They have great potential, very much like North Korea. North Korea has tremendous potential economically, and I don't think he's going to blow that. Germany is giving the so-called enemy, I don't call it an enemy, I want to get along with Russia, and I want to get along with China, because I'm smart. Stupid people don't want to get along, because I'm smart. This witch hunt hurt us in our relationships with a lot of countries. It was a very expensive, horrible thing for our country. And by the way, should never, ever happen again to a president. 2 years I've been going through this nonsense, and now we have a good report. And now guys like Jerry Nadler, who I fought for many years, successfully I might add, back in New York in Manhattan, he was a Manhattan congressman. I beat him all the time, and I come to Washington, and now I have to beat him again. Over nothing, over a hoax. And they know it's a hoax, they're smart. Nadler's a smart guy, Schiff is a smart guy. When Schiff goes to the microphone, he's conning this whole country, and he knows that. And he goes back into a room and he talks to his friends and he laughs, because that's the way life is. But our country is doing great.